How does gender and Islamophobia come into play following 9/11?
Well, I mean, even now with the FBI documenting that the highest or like the sharpest rise, the fastest growing hate crimes are against American Muslims. And of course, that raises the question is how does a perpetrator of a hate crime identify somebody as a Muslim? And it's women most of the time who are identified because in many cases, Muslim women wear headscarves. That's one very sort of obvious way that women have and their status as women and their desire to follow this particular aspect of their faith gets heavily sort of associated with the repercussions and negative repercussions of 9/11.
I want to look back for a second. I'm curious, to what extent do you attribute the current status of Islamophobia in America to the response that we saw from President Bush at the time?
Well, the current state of Islamophobia, I think, is in many ways connected to what we saw from our most recent former president, President Trump. And then you can see this even in terms of the sort of rise and fall of the hate crime statistics. And so it's not just President Trump, but even before that, there were other incidences. So, for example, when it came to challenges to Muslims building houses of worship, the Department of Justice saw this sharp rise immediately after 9/11. Such that 14% of the cases that DOJ was investigating involved mosques, even though Muslims constitute only 1.1% of the US population. And then things kind of died down for a little bit after that. And then in 2010, there was a big controversy in New York City involving what the opposition at the time dubbed the Ground Zero Mosque, which was really just an Islamic cultural center that was not at the site of Ground Zero, but several blocks away. And it became this huge sort of political flashpoint in which even then President Barack Obama sort of waffled on his support for the mosque, or so this thing that was called a Ground Zero Mosque, but actually a cultural center. And it became the sort of theme that, like, yes, all Americans have this right to religious freedom, including the right to build houses of worship. But when it comes to Muslims, somehow they have the right, but it is not right for them to do this. And that's where we really began to see this hypocrisy. And then after former President Trump proposed the travel ban on a number of Muslim majority states, you saw again this sort of rise in hate crimes, rise against attacks on mosques. There was a string of mosques that were burned down after he issued the first iteration of the travel ban. And so you see this kind of happening in response to what's going on at the highest levels of government.